Well, good morning to anybody who may be listening today. It's Saturday morning and it's rather a dismal day, or it started quite as a dismal day, but in the past 20 minutes or so, the sun has come out, and so it's a bit more cheerful. But it's quite cold here in the workshop, and I haven't managed to tidy it up or anything because the roof is still leaking despite my having spent 6 hours coating it with a product called Leak Stop. And I think water's getting into the chimney. Uh, um, I forget what it's called, a diaphragm or something, where the chimney comes through the roof. And I was hoping to maybe, I might have to repair that. I do have a spare one to fit, but I need some prolonged dry weather. So whether today will be enough just to do a makeshift repair and see if I can find out where the water is getting through, because it doesn't seem to me that the roof could be leaking any longer because it's covered with a layer of some kind of a polymer that would be completely watertight. I don't know. Roofs are complex structures, and I'm just proceeding, probably wrongly, but I'm doing what I can. So the temperature is only about 8 or 9 degrees at the moment, and I've lit the stove, but it's taking a while to heat up. But hopefully, when the stove heats up, it will make the roof, certainly around the flue, dry enough to do some patching work with CT1, which is a very good type of sealant and quite expensive too. And I've been up to the village to do some shopping, and there's so many people wearing those yellow vests that apparently you have to wear, children and adults wearing those fluorescent yellow vests. They're like an emblem of state approval. Everybody has to have one of those horrible yellow vests. I hate them a fair amount, actually, and I don't care to put anything like that on. I think people should just reject that stuff. But people just seem to follow the mainstream and they just go along with it all. And so it is. And it's an interesting period because I'm about to sort of stop working, I think, because my main customer that I've been working for seems to have a problem with paying me. And I don't care to get into those kinds of issues. If I'm in contract to do a job and there's a time scale on the payment, then I think customers should pay within that period. And some of them do and some of them don't. And one in particular has always been problematic. And that's the one that I'm doing most of the work for. So I'm waiting, for up to a year to receive the money. They've always paid, but it's, waiting for so long. At my age, I don't care to, because I don't know whether I'm going to be alive when I'm 72. There's no point in doing jobs that are going to be paid in a year. It's okay when you're in your 20s or 30s, but when you're in your 70s, it's not so great. And it makes me quite, it does annoy me a fair amount. And I have to then write dunning letters, which I hate, and, phrase them very carefully with a certain amount of irritation, but also understanding. And because there's nothing I can do. If a customer decides not to pay, then they just won't pay, and those situations are tedious. But I'd prefer to know it straight away. But I think my customers do intend to pay eventually. But I've written to the main offender saying, it's just not worth me doing it any longer. If I have to wait for a year before I'm paid for a particular job, then I just won't do it. And so, and I'm going to have to insist on that the next time they offer me a job. I'm just going to say, look, you pay my outstanding invoices and we're in business. But until that time, I'm not doing any further work. It's a very dangerous thing to say, of course, because that could be the time they'll cut you off. But I'm, it's immodest to say it, but I am quite a good translator, I think, after all the years of experience. And they have these patents which are absolutely diabolical, and you can't just give a patent to anybody. I know another man who does patents, and I believe he's a better translator than I am. And he's been doing them for about 30 years too. And, well, I know too, I haven't been doing them for 30 years because I only started patents probably 20 years ago. And I haven't done that many until lately, and I've done many. And then they have a new customer that had a trial translation, and I did it, and they got the contract. So again, it could be, they do have to be a little bit careful. I mean, I do have some very skilled colleagues. I'm not saying that another translator can't do it, but there are some, less able translators. I certainly know that because I've had to correct people's work. And it's very occasionally an education and a great blessing. And generally speaking, though, it's not very inspiring to see what people write sometimes and how they understand the language. Not great. So maybe, my ploy will pay off and they will actually pay me because they need me to do something. But maybe not. I might be just overrating myself. But I just can't be bothered, really, to carry on working like that. There's no point in it. I've got a small pension. As long as I give up all pretensions of grandeur and the ownership of sports cars and such other nonsense, then I can probably live on it. I'm quite frugal. I might have to cut back on the pipe smoking. So it is today, and well, I'm quite optimistic. I try to keep as optimistic as I can. My life has sort of descended into a series of rituals, perhaps ascended, that I have things that I have to do. Open the curtains in the front room, which is used not at all, except when I have a visitor. Open the blinds on the ground floor, switch off the outside light, open the curtains behind the front door, switch on the heating, do this, do that, go and make sure the shopping is done. What's the situation with bedding and ironing and, all these sorts of matters? And, is the kitchen floor as usual looking its worst, and does it need to be cleaned? Yes. Are you going to do it? All right. And trying to look after the house and then get some exercise and what have you. And, also the matter of discourse as well, because I think it's quite healthy to talk to people from time to time. And so I can do that by going to the shops sometimes. And, sometimes a conversation will happen. But I won't go and talk to somebody unless they come and sort me out first. Because if somebody does that, I assume that it sounds a bit arrogant, but I just assume that the Lord has sent whoever it is to come and speak to me. I don't know. But if I go and speak to somebody, then I know that I've done it. And so it's a bit more risky to do something like that. That's the way I would see it. Anyway, God bless today, and I hope you do have a wonderful day. I'm looking into the matter of the noble savage, which was the subject of a recent, very strong disagreement, I think, with my New Age friend. So I've just listened to quite a good video on the. I mean, I know something about the noble savage. I read Gene Liedloff's The Continuum concept many, many years ago, and I found it absolutely fascinating. And that sort of book really seems to promote the noble savage idea. She was supposedly an anthropologist, supposedly. How can we know? But it had a great effect on me, and there's a great deal of truth in it, actually, because it was her that first revealed to me this matter of the in-arms phase, which we no longer practice for infants. So having read her book and having got to know the Romani people, the proper sort of, I guess, the gypsies in Italy, and come into contact with them and been down to their caravan and had dinner with them one time. And I got to know Salco, who was quite a rogue, and sort of person that most people would just retreat from, but I got to know him. He was a bit mentally disturbed, I think. So I got to know those people, and I saw the benefit of the in-arms phase, because one thing that the gypsies do practice, and the gypsy women, they don't put their children down until they're ready to go down. And of course, in our society, we've dropped that essential practice, and that is the first source of trauma, which I spoke about the other day. The trauma trap, because it's extremely traumatic, of course, for a child to be put down from his or her mother before they're ready, because that equates with death. Children will go down when they're ready, and I saw this in the young gypsy children. They were so confident. They had none of the the more obvious mental traits and difficulties that the children of my brothers and sisters had. They were so confident. I've probably said this before, but when we went camping, the two children, the little girl who would have been probably 7 and her brother who was 5, cooked the chicken, insisting the girl wanted to do it, and she was helped by her brother. But she knew how to do it. I think she might have been helped more by her elder brother. I'm sorry, because there was an older lad there, Davide. But they cooked the chicken really well. I mean, that was at a time that, my daughter was just not at all capable of handling something like that. Although she was probably 6 or 7 herself. And I think a lot of that is due to this abandonment of in-arms parenting. Keep the child in your arms until they go down. They will go down at a certain point. You'll feel confident, but we remove that trauma from our mind. The first night spent in the cot in the other room. That's a death sentence for a child. But the trauma is too great, so you remove it. That's the problem with it all. That's why it's important to reach out with empathy to your younger self. Because your younger self was terrified. And you blanked it out in your mind. God bless this morning.